This conference on the greater good and the collective was planned months ago. But something happened recently, a great tragedy in Haiti, in which the very questions we're addressing and suddenly become of great interest to many people who 6 months ago perhaps weren't as concerned about human nature and whether or not by nature we are cooperative, if we are unselfish, if we're giving, and yet suddenly Americans have risen up and are now demonstrating great altruistic tendencies, to some to a surprising extent. It raises issues of, should we be doing this? Is our nation, is America charged uniquely to be the altruistic country among all the countries of the world? Given the deprivations that some of our Americans themselves are experiencing, is this time to use our scarce resources to benefit another group? And these are precisely the questions that we're dealing with in this conference.
One of the questions that came up this morning was about Haiti, and that's very much on everybody's mind since there's been such an awful tragedy there, and lots of altruism or altruistic impulses as people have reached out toward the country and toward the people. And I must say that one of the things that seems most important during this very difficult time is for people to learn a lot more about the history of Haiti, and certainly the extreme poverty in the country that's been there for forever, really, since Haiti won its independence in, I believe, 1804. And I think we all need to understand how that evolved and what the international forces were that have greatly affected the Haitian economy.
Yes, the events in Haiti with the earthquake and its devastating aftermath have certainly focused the eyes of the world on the plight of the people of Haiti, and have aroused a major worldwide response of trying to help in all kinds of ways. I took a look on the internet and found dozens and dozens of sites that have already sprung up offering advice to people on how they could get involved as a volunteer, to give some of their time, to use some of their skills for the benefit of Haiti, whether it's signing on with organizations that are helping to provide opportunities for people to go to Haiti, to be on site, to help with disaster relief, or to work providing the infrastructure of organizations here, working as volunteers for the various charities that are raising money, making phone calls, organizing relief efforts, packing up all of the food and water and things and other supplies that are being sent. There literally seem to be dozens and dozens, hundreds and hundreds of opportunities for volunteers, and it's so often the case, in the case of natural disasters and tragedies, the human response has been dramatic, a major outpouring of the desire to help, to do good, whether it's through the giving of money or the giving of time.
The situation in Haiti actually reveals for us and puts in perspective for us just how essential it is that we have these people in the world who intervene in our lives and in the lives of others in order to do good. Those people being philanthropists and those who act in a philanthropic way. And so it demonstrates for us just how essential philanthropy is in our society and in our globe. It also demonstrates for us how challenging it is to do philanthropy in a way that is ethical and that doesn't lead to unintentional harm or unintended consequences, which may be in the long term lead to harm. And there's a lot of ways in which doing a lot of good, particularly in a crisis emergency situation when you see the urgent need and you want to get the good there, the money there, the resources there as quickly as possible, there are ways in which that could lead to unintended harm, and we need to be very, very careful about how we do that. It can be frustrating often to do it that way, to take the time necessary to plan, to distribute the aid, to make sure you don't just pass it out willy-nilly, but to distribute it in a way that makes sense, that's going to work long-term and help people, help the people most in need, prioritize the right needs, on and on and on. There are many ways in which we need to be careful about how we do this. But the most important message is it demonstrates just how essential philanthropy is. And people in their own ways, all of us making mobile donations or sending clothes or whatever, are acting essentially as philanthropists, as moral leaders in the world, seeking a vision of good, which is that everybody should be safe and should have the basic needs, and that people should be responded to when they're in the greatest of needs. And philanthropy does that.
The two interesting observations I would make are that the first is an individualist is not opposed to charity, but rather chooses charities that are important to the individual, that respect that individual's values or particular interests that they might have. And in particular, individualists, I believe, have motivations to give to charities based upon what they think are deserving charities, based upon their values. If they value particularly cancer research or education or the amelioration of such tragedies as we've seen in Haiti, then they will choose to give to those, not out of a sense of duty, but out of a reflection of the values that they've chosen. And so in the case of Haiti, many individuals have contributed because they recognize that this is that the tragic human consequences of this were of no fault of the individuals that have been affected by this, and that they have extra money that they dedicate to charity every year, and that this is a worthy cause to dedicate to, mostly out of their own choice of their own values.
You know, one of the things that we often ask is, well, you know, who chooses to help, you know, and why do they help, right? And one of the things and we know from recent cultural neuroscience research is that people's empathic responses can vary very much as a function of their cultural values, and then also as a function of their biological diversity. So understanding, you know, how culture and biological diversity produce different types of empathy behaviors, both in rate and in amount in philanthropy, is really important for helping to organize, you know, a global response that's effective and immediate for serving nations that are, you know, most impoverished or most in need.
Well, I think the first thing I would note about Haiti was the difference between a highly advanced civilization and a more primitive one, in the sense that if you're less developed, you're so much more vulnerable to natural catastrophe. We have the power, if we have a natural catastrophe in the U.S., to recover fairly well, and we have the infrastructure to do it. We have the means to do it. In a country that's much less advanced, they're completely paralyzed when they have a natural disaster, and it makes you appreciate living in a technological civilization, to see that we can have disasters, but we can handle them, but it's so sad that they can't. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing is people have certainly been generous in trying to help out, but it's interesting because of their primitive level, it's been extremely difficult to even help them, because there's no way they were able to get them aid, because there's one airport working, the roads are all blocked and destroyed, the bridges are destroyed, and even getting help has been desperately difficult, causing many additional deaths. So you know, the best thing that can happen to Haiti is to become, in some way, a more advanced society, so that natural disasters wouldn't destroy them so completely.
I suppose what the tragedy illustrates is, once again, if we needed another demonstration, the power of nature. It also, though I think illustrates the importance of technical solutions and having the technical capacity to respond. But finally, it illustrates the importance of political capacity and the role of leadership. And Haiti wasn't really very well positioned in that respect either prior to this earthquake. So that too is part of the tragedy, I think.